Welcome to the Care Right podcast, your go-to resource for all things elder care. Guiding us through this journey is Annalee Kruger, the founder of Care Right Incorporated, and she has been steadfastly supporting families across the United States. Each episode brings you expert insights, innovative strategies, and practical advice, ensuring that you're well equipped to provide the best possible care for your loved ones. Expect to gain valuable knowledge, learn from real-life stories, and get inspired to take action in your own caregiving journey. So buckle up as we dive into an in-depth discussion of elder care planning and together embrace the journey of caring for aging loved ones on the Care Right podcast.
Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining the Caregiver Crisis podcast. My name is Annalee Kruger. I'm the owner of Care Right Incorporated. We work with family caregivers and seniors as a global consultancy. So we work with families all across the country. Typically, who calls us is the burned out, overwhelmed, stressed out, resentful family caregiver who has probably gotten thrust into the role of family caregiving without ever having any kind of family meeting about caregiving, or what do mom and dad have in place, like long-term care insurance? Are they on the waiting list of any different types of care communities? So usually, unfortunately, people come to us when they're in a pretty dire straits. They're in crisis mode and they really need help, and they need help now. So we are global consultants, and we do aging planning, crisis management, patient advocacy, dementia education for families so that they can better understand the disease process and how to manage it better. Help families understand the landscape of senior care, how to navigate senior care, understand death and dying and grief and changing family relationships and family dynamics, and all things aging and caregiving and dementia and end of life and senior care are what we specialize in. That's our area of expertise. As you know, if you've been on any of our podcasts or any of my podcasts, I always get really super cool guests that are doing amazing things out here in the world, and today is no different. Today we have Karen Wilkinson as our guest on the podcast today. So Karen, why don't you introduce yourself and just kind of share what is Karen and what is Karen up to?
Absolutely. Thanks, Annalee, for having me. And I'm so glad our mutual friend connected us, because although our journeys are different, we certainly have very similar passions for being prepared for the unknown. So like Annalee said, I'm Karen Campbell Wilkinson, sometimes known as KC to many of my friends and family. I've lived in Naples for 17 years now, previously a respiratory therapist. So I had a passion for organ donation and procurement. And little did I know that my husband would experience a health crisis that led us down the path of organ recipient this time. And we're going to talk a lot about that. But Annalee knows that I'm super passionate about having your stuff together, your documents in place. And because we were somewhat prepared for the very unexpected. So thank you for doing what you do, Annalee. And let's tell people all about this.
Yeah, share your story, because it is I don't even know how it's powerful, I guess is the most general word, but it is something that will keep you up at night if you have
Yes.
not had any of these types of conversations with your family, and if you end up having a medical crisis.
Yes.
Totally
unexpected.
Life is good and we're healthy until we aren't. And so
Yes.
tell your story.
We're coming up on the 3rd anniversary. I'm sure many of you have heard of this shutdown and pandemic. And our crisis occurred in 2021 when we thought this was kind of all over and people got more comfortable and out and about. And my husband is a urologist in town, surgeon. So healthy, you think like sterile procedures, masked, gloved. And he, became deathly ill with COVID. I had the fortunate experience of asymptomatic, didn't even know that was a true thing until I had it. And unfortunately, my husband got very, very ill to the point where he was mechanically ventilated, unable to answer for himself or make decisions. And I was thrust into that role of, goodness, I hope I'm doing what he wants done. basically grateful that we'd had multiple conversations, and both previously being respiratory therapists, we were familiar with, health crisis, mechanical ventilation, DNR statuses. And so David was made a do not resuscitate by the hospital, and I just prepared to fight. I wanted to know at the end of this, if he were to not survive, that I had done everything possible to honor his wishes. And again, thankfully, we had conversations. And like you referenced, we were 50, we were healthy, we were fit, medically knowledgeable, and we never saw this coming, never imagined this could be our story. But thankfully and miraculously, he is here alive and very well. And he had a double lung transplant, and that was not part of a conversation, right? When do you bring up that? Because, COVID wasn't a thing for us. We hadn't experienced something to this degree. And then we can go into how, medicine is a business. So he was fired from the higher ups, and not his partners, but the higher ups saying, look, you're on your deathbed. You're not making us any money. You're of no value to us. And thankfully, my fiduciary had helped me put way ahead of this a power of attorney in place. And I was able to vote in a buyout for his practice as if I were Dr. David Wilkinson. And so I give all credit and glory to God for saving his life. But I also say, if these documents weren't in place and these conversations hadn't occurred, I truly believe he would be deceased and we would be in financial ruin.
Agree. Because that's what happens when people don't have a plan in place.
Yes.
It's devastating in every single way. So what else would you want to share about your story?
Well, faith is huge for me. No question. And I was able to take these questions to God to say, I cannot make this decision. When I was asked to just let him go, and if you recall, COVID was also very different in the fact that families weren't allowed to be bedside quite often. So my visits were turned on when he was actively dying, turned off if there were too many COVID cases. So I was unable to see for myself, as someone with some medical knowledge. I had to just, the hospital says he's do not resuscitate. Oh, they say it's time to let him go. There's nothing else that can be done. And I honestly am sad for people that don't have any medical knowledge and just take what is told to them, because we trust. And I'm not saying that we shouldn't trust. I'm just saying that we must do research, and we must have those trusted people in medicine, in law, in the banking, financial, people like you with Care Right. Like, we have to have those trusted resources that we can go to when we don't know the answers. And again, fortunately, I did have my faith, and God just kept giving me these beautiful, wonderful signs and people in my life. And even a very, people ask me about this all the time once they've read our story in On Borrowed Breath, which I published. They say, tell me that story about that message you got from God, because a friend delivered a message to me saying David needs a walker. And David was in a medically induced coma, do not resuscitate, mechanically ventilated. What in the world would this guy need a walker for? So there was also a big faith aspect for me, and God speaking through people and to me that did get us to this other side.
Yeah. Your story is just, it gives me goosebumps. And, working with our Care Right clients on aging planning, which is mostly actually crisis planning, because people don't have these conversations about the what whens of aging, or what's our plan if our health changes. And there's a huge chunk of denial that people just think that we're never going to get sick, or we're never going to age, or we're never going to die, or we're going to die in our sleep, or, there's just so much of this, ignorance makes it sound like it's an ugly word, but ignorance just means that they're misinformed. Right. And so there's a lot of denial and ignorance of course we're going to age, and of course we're going to get sick, and we don't get healthier and more mobile and more cognizant and more independent as we age. So from a more of an aging perspective, it just makes sense that we start having these conversations sooner rather than later, because then
Yes.
God forbid something like that happens, or people, a lot of times people will say, well, Annalee, what is the age that we should start
Mhm.
having these conversations? And I say right now, like this very
Yes,
moment today.
I agree.
Because you never know.
Yes.
Because all the people who had major strokes last Thursday didn't wake up thinking, oh, I think I'm going to have a major stroke today. And, you
Right.
know, put myself and my family in harm's way because we don't have a plan in place. Or, all the people that got T-boned at the intersection
Yes.
yesterday, just trying to get home from work, didn't
Right.
think that they were going to have something like that happen. And even my own personal story, 4 days after my
Mhm.
40th birthday, I was returning from Shenzhen in Beijing, China, from an international speaking engagement on aging and crisis preparedness. 4 days after I got back, I was in Sheboygan, Wisconsin, because that's where I lived in the Milwaukee market, and
Mhm.
had built Care Right in the Milwaukee market before I was totally virtual. And I got hit by a school bus. She was
Right.
distracted by the kids on the bus, and blew through a four-corner stop. And I was the little what is that, hood ornament.
Yes.
And
Yes.
so, but I practice what I preach. I carry my living will. I carry my
Mhm.
power of attorney. I carry like who to contact in case
Yes.
someone finds me incapacitated. Like, this is who you need to call, and I'm a do not resuscitate. So I carry all of
Mhm.
that with me. And I always have, because I work with people who didn't think about stuff like that, and then they find themselves in a really bad way. So those are some takeaways. Some of the other things that we wanted to talk about today, and this is how I know I got older, but I had a bus drive through my face. so
Yeah,
so I
so you're doing great.
so I'm doing okay, because I still have my teeth and I can see, so that's good. Um, so let's see, we wanted to talk about a couple things, preparing for the unthinkable, and discuss it with your family, having your affairs in order. Like with Care Right, one of the things that we do with our families is the grab and go binder. um,
Yes.
who are all the professionals, accounts, passwords, business succession plan, all things legal, your estate documents, your any litigation or adoption or divorce decrees, your military discharge records, all that kind of stuff, to really get families buttoned up, because it's usually through this grab and go binder process of the rest of the process that we go
Mhm.
through with our families, that they're like, oh my gosh, we didn't know that mom and dad never did sign off on their estate documents, because before
Right.
they went back to the attorney to sign the paperwork, dad fell again and he was in the hospital, and then we were just busy with all of that. So it helps families, the grab and go binder, the digital grab and go binder, helps families make sure that they have all of their documents, accounts, and beneficiary forms updated,
Yes.
reflect their current wishes, all of that kind of stuff. And it forces you to kind of think and have conversations as a family about, what are your thoughts about end of life, or mom, your funeral arrangements, let's talk about those. And those are difficult conversations to have, but that's why then the families can always, if they were thinking that they were going to do the grab and go binder on their own as a do it yourselfer, when it comes down to having these family meetings, it can be very intimidating. And so they always
Absolutely.
hire us then to facilitate the actual family meetings, and put an actual aging plan in place.
And not
So
only
it's,
that, but you kinda do the nagging, if you will,
yeah,
for us, because I think I shared with you that my mom bought my dad, I mean, it's, like, been 2 Christmases ago now. My dad just turned 80, and she's asking for, like, all the passwords because they're still in that generation of he
yep,
pays the bills. And I'm like, "Okay, mom, it's been 2 years. He hasn't done it." And that's why I think it's important to get you in place to say like, "Okay, family, you know,
yeah.
turn your homework in."
You're right. We become the accountability partner. It's like, okay, what heading do you want to start with? Maybe they want to start with the estate documents or the
Mhm.
legal tab, because they have some of that already to put together. Maybe their accounts
Right,
and passwords, but because we become the do it your, we become the grab and go kind of project manager to keep them on track. Otherwise, what's going to happen is, the people, the knower of the information, like if it's your dad that knows all this information and he has a
mhm,
stroke or dementia,
right,
all of that information is lost. And
right.
then And then it's really, then families are really scrambling. So, and
And
organ donors, organ donors,
yes.
another important thing to,
Mhm.
and you cover that, and we talked about that a little bit too. But getting your organ donor card and your grab and go binder and talking to your families about what that means.
I was just going to go into that because it was funny having a family conversation. When I was younger, my dad would say, just please don't give your eyes, like I don't want to walk around and wonder if those are your eyes.
Oh.
And I was like, Dad, I didn't even know that would bother you. Don't worry. Sorry, Dad, if you're listening, they can have my eyes too. But it was good conversation to hear, hey, this part of it bothers me. Okay, let's talk through that. And I was able to let him know, like, these are corneas, Dad. They're not going to look like these big brown eyes that I have. You're not going to be recognizing them, And so I'm sure because of the fields that David and I were in, these were conversations because every shift someone was in a horrific traffic accident. Someone, had a new diagnosis. We worked the emergency department. So it was very natural for us. And so our kids are used to these conversations.
Yeah.
But now that they're in their 20s, we've even gone as far as to say, I know you don't have a huge savings account or huge investments, but do you have a beneficiary? And they've decided as brothers to make each other beneficiaries until they're married. And
Yep.
so it's just good to go through those conversations. And my fiduciary even found some accounts while David was incapacitated that we'd forgotten about, like we probably started them in our early 20s ahead of our marriage. And she's like, yeah, this is what happens. You have to go through every single account. There's no beneficiary on these. And she buttoned those up. So it's just conversations like that. You don't want to lose that to probate or to attorney fees.
Right. And that's it. I think people don't realize how expensive probate is. And that's just that much
Yes.
less money in your pocket if you would have planned
Yes.
ahead. And yeah, it's going to cost some money, but you're going to lose more money if you don't plan ahead. That's just common sense.
Absolutely, Annalee. And I'm glad you said that because I said to someone recently, they're like, we just don't feel like we can afford to get these together right now. And I said, you're looking at maybe $1,000. And I know it goes up from there. But again,
Yeah.
if you go get these little online documents and fill them out, and I'm like, what we would have lost in comparison to that $1,000 is not even a conversation. And
Right.
then I know we're referring back to my respiratory therapy days, and I've been a realtor for several years now. And I have to go through this with the family. And when I have to tell them, like, you actually don't own this house. This is going to go to probate. I can't sell it yet, but call me, after you get out.
Yeah.
And it's oftentimes held up for a year,
Yep.
several $1,000s. And I'm like, see that $1,000. And I get it. We spent more than $1,000. So I don't want to say like everyone that goes out to put these documents in place will only spend that.
Right.
We personally went through our attorney and sat down with our adult children and we were able to speak through everything, every conversation. What does this look like? So
Yeah. It's worth it's worth the dollar investment and the time investment, because I promise you, for those that are listening, if you don't, you're just making it 1,000% more
yes,
worse for your
yes.
family, your surviving families. And, I guess that's the opportunity cost, right? What is
Mhm.
that? A penny wise, pound foolish? That
Yes.
old saying. And that's true. Yeah, it's going to cost money to put a plan in place, but it's going to cost you more and more in family relationships if you don't.
Absolutely. And I think parents need to think through that. And I have this funny story. I know you've heard it, but my older brother, so the firstborn, my parents just, for whatever reason, thought that he should be executor of the estate. He should be in charge. And it got comical because I said, my mom's chronically ill, so she's been in and out of the hospital a lot of my life. And I said, Mom, my brother doesn't go visit, right? Like he
Yeah.
passes out if you say the word blood. So you and Dad might want to consider, I'm not saying you have to appoint me, but I'm offering, if that works for you. I've worked traumas for decades, like,
Great.
why would you choose him unless it's just you thought the firstborn child had to do this? And she's like, I don't know why we did. You're right. It doesn't make sense. So it's just those conversations that going. And of course, my brother was like, oh, thank goodness.
I was gonna say
Thank
he's probably
goodness.
like,
And then after watching me fight for David's life, my sister-in-law married to this brother, she was like, I didn't really ask permission for you, but you're now my executor and my power of attorney. And I was like, oh gosh, does my brother know?
That's what happens when you're good at what you're doing.
Yes, but that's what connected me to you. And again, all these conversations I've had, that doesn't mean now that my parents or David's parents, we don't have a, grab and go binder. And so I'm like, I've got to get on Annalee's schedule.
Yeah. Yep. And the cool thing is about the grab and go, like, as a business owner, you want to make it as utterly simple as possible and easy as possible for people to want to do business with you. So like you can, if you go on the carewriteinc.com website, you can purchase the grab and go binder. It's like $39.97. And then you put your credit card in and then it just comes right to you, and it's digital, and it's the do-it-yourself aging guide, and then the grab and go binder bundle pack or my book or whatever. So people can, easily purchase stuff like that, just right straight from the website. And then when I check in with people 30 to 60 days later and like, hey, how are you coming with a grab and go? Oh, I haven't even touched it. It's so overwhelming because it's so robust. And I'm like, I know, but these are all the things that you need to have in order, because someday you will need to have these things in order proactively, instead of making your family try to get all this done at the hospital bedside when it's going to be super more
What a gift.
and scary. It is a gift.
What a gift to your family. And even I want our funerals planned.
Yeah.
And my husband doesn't love talking about it, but I'm like, just picture our sons' faces. We just went to Hawaii. We were in a helicopter over an active volcano. And I'm like, just picture their faces. If we don't make it home, how much easier it will be that this is already planned. And I'm frugal. Let's go ahead and pay for 2024 prices. Doesn't mean we're going to die this year.
Because then you get locked in at that rate.
Yes.
Funerals are just like everything else. They don't go down in price. So
no way.
So the more that you can plan ahead, and like with a lot of our CareRight clients, now I've been in business long enough, I have the second generation coming and saying, when we first hired you, Annalee, we hired you because things were a mess with mom and dad. They didn't have anything prepared. We didn't have an aging plan. We didn't have a grab and go binder. We didn't have any of this stuff or family meetings. And I don't want to leave my kids in that same predicament. So now it's like cool, because I've got the 50, 60, 70-year-old kids that I was doing aging planning for them and their parents. Now I'm facilitating their family meetings and helping them get their grab and go binder and putting their aging plan in place for that next generation, which is really powerful for me. So let's talk about what are ways to advocate for a loved one when they are incapacitated? Because you brought up some really good bullet points of things that we could talk about on the podcast today. And I think we've given a ton of really helpful, valuable information, but what are some ways that people can advocate when someone's incapacitated?
Well, again, I think this goes back to, hopefully you've had these conversations in place.
And documented it.
Yes. And I referenced, of course, having your team. Like, who are your resources? Who are the people that you trust? Who can you go back to? And having that accessible, whether it's a grab and go binder or, we have these emergency contacts in our phone. Our boys know if something happens, there's two people that you call, and just having that plan in place, using your resources. There's no question. It's so funny because I don't have the bullets pointed in front of me still. So I'm like, what am I missing, Annalee? What did I say was also fantastic for resources?
So you talked about registration for organ donation. How do they do that?
So you can literally just go to, it's like, not in front of me. How do you like that? Organdonation.com. There's American Give. I wish I had all the links in front of me. I'll send them to you so we could give everybody. Donatelife.com, certainly a great one, and have those conversations. It's devastating, and I have seen it as a previous respiratory therapist, when those traumas come in and we realize that someone's brain dead, they're not going to make it, maybe that person has said that they're an organ donor, and now the family's like, I don't know, I didn't know, I don't want that. And you're like, we have to go back to honoring that person's wishes. This does not now become about you or about me. And I understand that this is a tragic experience and high emotion, which is why these conversations ahead of that are critical.
Right. Yeah, because by the time they're coming to care, right? And I try so hard. That's why I do podcasts and speaking engagements and all this kind of stuff to say, look, consumer, this stuff can
Yes.
happen to you. So let's get ahead of it so that just in case if or when things change for you, we actually have all this stuff discussed and have a conversation about it. But why I made a point to like kind of butt in and say that it has to be documented is because I do family mediation, right? 85% of my families who come to me, their relationships are so sideways for a lot of different reasons. And a lot of it is because they're in crisis mode. So try to imagine how it is facilitating family meetings, doing family mediation alongside of, okay, now mom is sick.
Of
We need to
course.
put a plan in place, so it gets very difficult for everybody. And it's always at the 11th hour. So please, if you're listening to this, don't wait until things go sideways. Like, let's be upfront and let's have these conversations now. But so many times people have sidebar conversations with mom or something like that. And then they're like, well, she told me this is what she wants.
I believe it.
It has to be documented. It has to be documented. Like even with my healthcare power of attorney, my attorney looked at me like I was from Mars because she's like, you want what added to this? It's just that I've worked in ICU units and nursing homes and memory care facilities my entire life. And I know exactly what quality of life means to me. And I have 2 pages of what not to do. And that way and I talk to my family about my brother and my sister are my healthcare and financial agents. And we talk about this often so that they don't, so it's more muscle memory so that like if something happens to me, God forbid, they're not like, oh, what's that document?
What did she say?
What her wishes? This way it's like normal conversation, like pass the pepper.
It is. And I don't, I'm like, are we weird? Are we weird? Because I think it's very normal.
I know. And we were just brought up in a family where you actually like talk about important things and not just about, imbecile type of things. We talked about important things. And so to me, it's like second nature, right? To have these kind of conversations, but most people don't have them. And that's why they find themselves in crisis and then wondering what to do. So takeaways from today. Number 1, family meetings. If you can't do it on your own, and don't be afraid to say that, wow, our family is just isn't one of those that can have a family meeting and have it be a productive type of meeting. That's what we can help you with at Care Right. Number 2, get your affairs in order, your grab and go binder or whatever version of the grab and go binder that you're going to use. Number 3, if interested in doing organ donation, one of the websites is donatelife.org. And I want to make sure that people know about your book and your story. So tell me again the name of your book, and you can hold it up. Yep, there you go. On Borrowed Breath. And where can they buy your book?
On Borrowed Breath is on Amazon in paperback form, or if you're a Kindle, KDP. Also, it's on Audible and it's on Spotify. So if you've got Spotify Premium, you could just grab that, or if you're a member of Audible, if you prefer listening, but it's available, those 4 options.
Good. I encourage everybody to get the book or or listen to the book, whatever format works the best for you. I will just forewarn you, have like a massive box of tissues handy. It is such a heartwarming story and experience, and just how your faith sustains you through that whole crisis is just is just unbelievable. It's just an
And
amazing.
you'll laugh too, because in case
you'll
you're
laugh
like,
too,
oh,
yeah.
I don't, yeah, a lot of people are like, how did you do that? How you had me laughing, and then I was crying, and I was like, oh, good, okay.
Yeah, and I know you do a lot of speaking engagements and stuff as
Yes.
well, and some virtual webinars and stuff like that. So you're available for, talks if that's something that listeners
Absolutely.
are interested in, so that you've got.
I've done book clubs. I've done virtual. Like they'll say, like, will you grab a glass of wine and answer our questions at the end? And that's super fun too.
Yeah, yeah. And then also if you're in the Naples area and you're looking for a
Yes.
real estate professional, you just
Mhm.
got all these little hats that you wear, and you wear them all very well. So
Thank you. Thank you. I do. And I am so honored that we have met and that our hearts are connected. And please, people, trust us. We're passionate about this because we've both experienced an unexpected crisis of a family member and had to really get our stuff together. So reach out to Annalee, get that grab and go binder. I will have it for my parents.
and just keep in mind, if any of this, aging planning conversations about this type of stuff, this is what CareRight provides as a service virtually,
Yes.
literally virtually across the globe, family caregivers. So don't be afraid to reach out. For CareRight, we offer a free 30-minute Zoom consult to just get a sense of what your situation is and how we can help you and what that may cost. So and you can also reach out to Karen as well. When we publish this, you'll have the contact information for Karen. So if you do have questions or want to schedule speaking engagements or webinars or whatever, you'll have her contact information to reach out to her directly as well. So thank you a gazillion
Thank
times over
you.
again for all that you do, the impact that you make on so many people's lives. And I'm just so glad and so happy that David is back on track and he's okay. So
Amen, sister. And thank you.
you're welcome. Thank you so much, Karen.
Thank you for tuning in to the CareRight podcast. We hope today's discussion has provided you with valuable insights. If so, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share our podcast with others who might find it helpful. Remember, CareRight is more than just a podcast. It's a community dedicated to supporting family caregivers with comprehensive care planning, crisis management, and resources for every stage of aging. Stay connected with us for future episodes as we continue to explore essential topics in aging planning, elder care, and financial planning. Until next time, take care, plan wisely, and remember, you're not alone in your caregiving journey.